Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was the son of demon and angel with Ghost Rider's powers movie. Before we start, please go support Albro 13,000 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Prologue. God, the biblical God, the creator of the entire world, universe and dimensions, creator of all its laws, was the creator of everything that humanity has known, among them the race that had its counterpart, two races equal to yin-yang, the angels, beings who live in heaven and watch over innocent and good-hearted people, believers in their faith and beings of light and a pure heart, and demons. Beings that live in hell, created by God to punish sinners who like the suffering of others, beings of darkness and a black heart. Both species races never got along, even when their father told them not to fight. The discrimination, racism and hatred of angels from demons and of demons from angels led to both races having several fights, battles and even being in wars. Unfortunately, God was never able to prevent the battles from being created or prevent them from ending at the beginning, having a bad ending for both races, with the death of several of their own. But not all were the same. That was the case of a demon who, instead of completely hating angels, had fallen in love with an angel, the Archangel Gabriel, one of the most beautiful women in the world, if not the most beautiful. The demon knew that no one would accept that he had fallen in love with a person who belonged to the enemy race. He was afraid that someone would find out, but at the same time he did not want anyone to have the love of his beloved, so making a decision, he decided to pretend to be an angel. His plan worked perfectly, but unfortunately he would be discovered, asking to be heard and even praying to God, something strange since the demons would never follow his father, but no angel listened to him and they killed him. Among those angels was his beloved, but after the love that no longer existed at that time there was a fruit, the fruit of his own love. "Daughter, why don't you accept it?" a man asked a beautiful young blonde with emerald eyes. "Why is he the son of a demon, father?" said the woman who had 6 pairs of angelic wings on her back, on her head a golden halo that shone the same color. At that the man would let out a sigh. He was about to speak again, but another voice in the room would sound. "Leave it like that, father. If Gabriel doesn't want this beauty, then he will be mine," said a black-haired girl with blue eyes, wearing a grayish suit with a white shirt with a collar and a yellow tie, on his head a white halo that released a glow of the same color. In her arms a brown-haired baby with blue eyes, these being a variation of those of his mother Gabriel and demon father. "Lucifer, talk to your friends. That child belongs to the race you hate," said the blonde woman known as Gabriel. "It will be, but at the same time it is your own blood, which is why he is an angel too, an Nephilim. Yes, that will be the name of the new race, Nephilim, and I don't hate demons," said Lucifer, proud of herself and her nephew. "Don't be so proud, sister, or it could cost you dearly," said a man with a mocking smile. His hair is black, but has a blonde streak. "Azazel, say something to Lucifer," Gabriella said angrily. "Something," Azazel said, turning to look at Lucifer. Inevitably she couldn't help but laugh. Along with Azazel, her father would only shake his head with a small, amused smile. At that, Gabriel would only get angrier and leave the place, slamming the door shut. At that, almost all 3 of them would let out a sigh. Lucifer would rock the baby in his arms in an attempt to stop him from crying, since when the door slammed shut, it woke up the baby who started crying instantly. "When I stopped seeing Issei as a mistake," Lucifer said, looking at Issei with a sad look. "Better said, when will it be like you? Even after those demons attacked you and left you infertile with that attack on your belly, you still don't hate them," Azazel said, looking at his sister who gave a sad smile. "Hating them is useless, besides not all demons are the same, an example would be Issei's father," said Lucifer, caressing baby Issei a little. At this God and Azazel would smile. "I'm glad you don't have a negative view of your demonic brothers," God said with a smile. "Yes, I would like my brothers to be more like me," Lucifer said calmly. "But they are not, and even if I wanted them to, they would change. I promised all of you that I would not submit to any of you, and after the creation of everything, I can hardly take it anymore," said God with a tired smile. "Come on, Dad, you sound like you're going to die. Only when you have no strength left would you sleep like the lazy person you are," said Azazel. "Ha ha ha, yes, you are right, my children," said God with a smile, looking at his 2 children. The years passed. Little Issei grew up, only with the love of his grandfather and a few of his uncles. Issei always sought the acceptance and love of his own mother, something that was denied to him by herself. Looks of contempt and murmurs behind his back he received from his other uncles. But he never gave up. Issei always sought recognition from everyone, even when he managed to free his wings. About 3 pairs of silver wings, only his grandfather, his aunt and uncle Azazel and Lucifer, along with a few others, were proud of him, but no one else. More than once he sought his mother's attention but only received humiliation, abuse and misfortune from her. Note: the reason they don't fall is because the system is not the same as in the anime manga yet, but later it will be. Apart from Issei being part demon, the system sees the mistreatment of him as a neutral action. End of note. Arriving at his house, a smiling Issei would enter it. Today his grandfather had given him an important title, that of the Angel of Justice. His aunt Lucifer congratulated him, along with his uncle Azazel and aunt Beelzebub, after having spent some time with them he ran to his house to inform his mother of this, but on the way he was receiving murmurs from his other uncles and cousins. Once he arrived at the living room of his house, he looked for his mother and found her in the kitchen cooking dinner, so he approached her with a smile and would talk to her. "Mom, guess what?" Issei said, but he would be interrupted. Clap. "How many times have I told you not to call me mom? Mistake, go to your room, you will not have dinner today," said Gabriel angrily after slapping Issei, who ran to his room in fear. Once he got there he went in and lay down, hiding between his sheets. He would put a hand on his right cheek where he had been hit and where the mark of his own mother's hand was. The child could only cry at that. Right now he wanted to be with his grandfather, uncle and aunts, but that would not be possible, since that would be the last day he would see them. And when he least expected it, something grabbed him through the sheets of his bed, and he was lifted out of it and carried away while he kicked and begged and screamed for help. Issei would be thrown to the floor, in front of him a hooded man with a black cloak, on his back about 5 pairs of angelic wings. He didn't know who it was, but he could see 2 blue glows coming out where his eyes should be. Behind him other angels, among them he could recognize one, his uncle Michael, the person closest to his mother. "What's happening?" Issei asked, confused and scared. "It's all yours, Kakabiel," said Michael. He and his group of angels would leave the place, leaving the two alone. "Ahaha, I'll enjoy it like you can't imagine," said Kakabiel, looking at Issei with a satisfied and evil smile. Chapter 1. The Birth of an Avenger. The black-haired girl was crying in a lonely room. She had recently found out about the disappearance of her beloved nephew. This person was Lucifer herself. She was trying to hold back her tears, but it was impossible. Without any consolation, Lucifer would continue crying, blaming herself for not being able to be there to help him. Looking up she would see a photo on a table where she and Issei appeared. That only made her cry more. Apart from that, she managed to see another photo, her with her brothers. But his gaze would be directed at 2 people in particular, Michael and Gabriel, the 2 who hated the most of being as innocent as Issei. Lucifer would get up and go to the table where the photos were, taking the photo he saw and seeing with more understanding his 2 younger brothers. He loved them, he wanted to love them at this moment, but it was impossible for him at this moment. She right now was only letting herself be carried away by despair, hatred, sadness, fear and a thirst for revenge, a revenge that she wanted to fulfill. She wanted to kill her brothers no matter what, she wanted to annihilate her own race. So squeezing the picture frame harder, it would break, and then Lucifer would light it, burning it in a silver fire with golden touches, which slowly turned into an orange one with light touches of black. His hair turned white, blood began to fall from his head, and from the places where the blood came out, tiny white horns peeked out. His eyes went from light blue to purple, then to crimson. Hatred was reflected in them, blood would come out of his lower back, and the tip of a spear would be present in the new wound. His skin became paler. Lucifer had fallen, but instead of becoming fallen, her hatred and thirst for revenge transformed her into the counterpart of her race, into the race of her other brothers. Now she was a demon. Beelzebub. The most powerful archangel of all, surpassing her other sisters and brothers, including Lucifer, was in a forest. In front of her a river of clean water. She looked at it without any emotion. Her eyes had lost their shine. Only one thought was in her head: would Issei be alive? No, from her point of view he wouldn't be, because he would be. He's just a child that almost everyone hated, only a few loved him. Even though she begged and prayed, she knew very well that he was already dead. She looked for him but couldn't find him. She even looked for him with his room given to her by her father, divine knowledge, an ability similar to inherent omniscience, the ability to know everything you want to know. But the disadvantage that she can only use it every 3 hours with a delay in activation of 15 seconds, and only being able to know everything related to a single person or thing. When she used it she couldn't see anything, nothing of Issei, his parallel, his physical and mental state, not a single clue. Something had prevented her from using her ability to search for the boy she loves. After a long time, she would spread her wings with the intention of leaving the place, but in doing so she would see her 20 angel wings, 10 pairs of angelic wings. It seemed ironic to her, of what she should be proud and happy to have. Now it disgusted her to know that other people with the same wings had harmed the child she loved. Her mind began to turn dark as dark thoughts came to her head. Her wings turned black, her golden hair turned a dark brown, her amethyst eyes turned a dull purple, with wider eyes. She would smile at that, dark circles would begin to form under her eyes, but not being happy with it, through a magic circle she would summon a large blue and gold sword. After that he would carry her on his back with only one thought in mind, that he would no longer have any kinship or connection with the race he hates. The 3 seraphim and 4 archangels would be escorting Gabriel. She was confused and nervous about such an act. She only knew that she was called by her father, but she did not understand why they were escorting her that way. Once they arrived at the predetermined place, they entered through a silver arch with golden details in the shape of flowers on the other side, and the place where they entered, it was a beautiful garden. In the distance they could see 3 people, a man and 2 women, one identical to the man and the other different from the other 2. Gabriel would recognize him and them as the first humans, the only beings that surpassed the angels and demons, being these created in the image of his father, although nobody knew how similar to the father of all they were, but from the rumors it could be said that one of them or at least 2 would be the possible successors of God. After that, Gabriel would turn to see his father, who would only turn his back on him until he would speak, but not before making a sign with his hand, and the other angels would withdraw. "Where is Issei?" God asked calmly. "Oh, he has to be playing over there," Gabriel replied somewhat nervously. "Then tell me why I can't feel his presence, even with my omniscience I can't find him, and not even with my other abilities, it's as if he had disappeared right in his house in your house," Gabriel said God calmly. Gabriel didn't know what to say, he had no answer to that. "You know, when Issei was born, I expected him to be born like you, but no, he was born like his father in life. He was someone proud and somewhat arrogant, there is no need to doubt that, but he had his own purpose in life. He was once your partner, I think he should have told you that at some point, right? And if that's the case, please tell me," said God calmly. He was someone who had the goal of being able to have a quiet life, away from the battlefield and with his family. He was someone dedicated, kind and loving, someone who could be trusted with something, apart from having a point of view of justice different from the others, but a little similar to yours, but all that was a lie on the part of a demo, said Gabriel, but would be interrupted. "A lie from a demon? Then tell me, Gabriel, why would a demon seek to have a child? Why was the darkest and heartless being waiting for the birth of his child? Why did he care about you all that time? Why was he by your side when you needed it most? Even he killed his own brothers to protect you. Tell me, Gabriel, if a demon is a being without a heart and of pure evil, why did he do that for you?" God asked, still calm. Gabriel only lowered his head, thinking more clearly. A tear would fall down his cheek to realize something. "He loved you, and instead of listening to him you killed him," and then Issei continued. Why? Why mistreat your own blood? A mistake. The mistake was not that you were born, the mistake was that you did it with your demon brother, and that you did not love your son, said God. Father, I can still fix it," Gabriel said as more tears came out of his eyes. "I granted you the ability to see people's auras, but you never saw your son's pure aura, preferring to ignore him and allow your other brothers to humiliate him, hit him, curse him, among other things." He lets out a sigh. "I'm tired of you and your brothers continuing to do the same, but I'll take care of that, even if I have to sleep for a long time afterwards, but for now, please, Gabriel. I'll withdraw, your position as Seraph is dismissed, and you will return to being a one-pair angel. Apart from that, you will not be allowed to have more children. I do not want more of my grandchildren to suffer the same thing that Issei suffered," said God, snapping his fingers. At that moment Gabriel's wings began to turn into butterflies, leaving only one pair of wings, 2 wings in total. Apart from feeling like something in his belly disappeared. "Now get out, I'm not in a mood for your complaint," said God. Gabriel between cries would leave the place, leaving God with the other people. These same people would approach their father to talk and ask about some matters. Several days later. Gabriel was sitting on a bench. She was in a familiar heavenly park. In front of her passed the families of angels, parents together with their children. She could only see this with sadness. Shedding some tears, she would look at her hands, for a moment being able to see them with blood, holding the sword that she used to kill her ex-husband. Right now she regretted that decision. She considered herself so stupid at this moment, but before she could continue blaming herself, she would see Azazel come to her, his hair overshadowing his eyes, his wings with small black feathers. She knew what was going to happen now with Azazel. The same thing happened to her sisters Lucifer and Beelzebub. Because of her, they were not worthy of being in heaven, and now Azazel would not be there anymore. "Why?" Azazel asked while standing in front of the ex-seraph. This one would just bow his head. "How could you do this to your own son?" Azazel asked angrily. "I know what I did was a mistake," but Gabriel said, but she would be silent. Clap. Azazel had slapped her, silencing her instantly and leaving her paralyzed with surprise, letting her feel more clearly the throbbing pain in her cheek and heart, all of which was seen by all the other angels, who were surprised by such an act from one of their superiors. "He only wanted your damn love, he only wanted you to call him son, at least once in his entire life, but what did you do?" Gabriel doesn't respond. "What did you do?" "Nothing of that, you just hit him senselessly, you let others mistreat him and humiliate him, you never did anything, not even you were part of that, and you call yourself his mother?" His wings begin to turn black, horrified those present at the place. "I cannot believe you were an angel. Not even a demon would do what you did. No, what all the angels did." He lets out a sigh. "Would kill you, but I know that doing so will not bring him back, apart from the fact that he would not have wanted it, but that does not mean that I will forgive you, on the contrary, ex-seraph Gabriel." I hate you, and I know that is why I am already falling, so in front of everyone, but especially in front of you I will no longer belong to heaven, from now on the angels and I, the fallen angel Azazel will be enemies, until one of the two dies, said Azazel with hatred and anger. After that he would withdraw from the place, leaving Gabriel crying inconsolably and the other angels in horror at what was seen today. Years later. I can't believe that father did that, and just because of a damn mistake like you said, Gabriel. His eyes were now red, his skin pale, his wings black as coal, as was his hair. In front of him a 20-year-old Issei, nailed to the wall by harpoons with chains. Was he alive? Yes, he was, although his eyes were completely empty. Even those hitches Lucifer and Beelzebub fell, and only because they were angry that they did this to you, said Gabriel. He himself would smile to see how Issei moved a little with anger when he hears the word hitches. But anyway, you're no longer of use to me. He takes a golden ring and turns the finger where the ring was. A portal would open in front of him. Apparently it worked. He asked me if the device to prevent the fall of an angel would have worked. TSK. I should never have given it to the incompetent, Michael Gabriel finished saying in a whisper, with an annoyed tone. After that he would summon a sword and pierce Issei's abdomen, who didn't make any gesture of pain. After that he would take him and throw him through the portal, and he would begin to close it, but while he was doing that some thoughts came to his head. Since I think about it, it would be better not to leave any evidence. I don't want to be involved in your death and disappearance. Apart from that, I'm sure Michael won't say anything about this, said Gabriel somewhat thoughtfully, so creating a magic circle, he would throw a tail of fire at Issei's half-dead body, thus beginning to burn him alive. After all that, he would finish closing the portal, smiling at the spectacle of Issei being charred. He himself felt nothing. He only saw the sky while his body burned, but in the distance he could see a battle between angels and demons. He saw how an angel did not want to fight, but the demons would kill her anyway, and how a demon also refused to fight, but an angel attacked him, killing him in the process along with a demon who wanted to help him. That made something in Issei's broken soul resonate more when the blood of said supernatural beings fell on him and his body aside of him. He wanted to do something. Something in him told him to do something, but it was too late. All his flesh was charred. His bones were the only thing left for now, but a light in the blue ribsage would make Issei's skeleton slowly rise. Some points would form in the sockets, simulating to be eyes. The flames that covered what was left of his corpse would grow stronger, beginning to cover it completely. The fire in the grass and other plants in the forest would begin to be absorbed by it, and once standing correctly, the skeleton of the deceased Issei wrapped in orange flames. But the various and completely black sockets with more fire coming out of them would let out a roar, attracting the attention of the other supernatural beings, which turned to see him, seeing him with some terror and seeing the corpses, thinking that he was the one who killed them. They would launch themselves to attack him, without knowing that that would be their last moment of life. The same roar that the burning skeleton released resonated not only on the battlefield, nor only in the forest, nor its surroundings. It sounded throughout the world, the entire planet Earth, traveling through mountains, fields, skies and seas, being heard by every living being that inhabits the earth, but above all. Issei said the three leaders, God, Azazel and Lucifer, each in their respective territory, managing to hear the roar, and as strange and illogical as it was, they knew who it belonged to. Chapter 2. Avenger Ghost. The angels and demons were dead on the ground, completely charred, and Issei, or rather, the Avenger, would take the clothes of some of them and put them on, taking the armor of one of them. Then he would lift the chains that previously imprisoned him, and then he would put them away. Some portals would speak, and from there demons and angels, including the fallen ones. They saw the Avenger, who had the armor of an angel. This same armor was dyed black. Through the slots of the armor came out the fire that surrounded his skeleton. The golden parts became more noticeable, and the silver ones darker, but distinguishable from the dark areas of the armor. Two yellow and orange dots could be seen in the eye slots. The demons and angels, frightened, not knowing what was in front of them, would attack with magical attacks of different kinds. Once these same attacks collided with the Avenger, a smoke screen would rise. Once it vanished, it showed the Avenger intact. He would only take his chains and throw them at two supernatural beings, an angel and a demon. Along the chains he would run the body and burn the angel and demon to ashes, leaving only their skeletons. Collecting his chains, the Avenger would turn to see the rest of the supernatural beings. The fallen were of no interest to him, but the angels and demons, they would be the next to be judged. Years later. Things changed. The new system imposed by God caused the fall of more than 23,000 angels, and the transformation of 4,273 angels into demons. Few would be saved by a device given by Michael, prevented them from falling, but they learned something, and that would never make the same mistakes of their past again, and would prevent their children from committing the same sins as them. Azazel created the third biblical faction, the fallen angels. He accepted most of the fallen angels, seeing that after their fall, they had repented of their treatment of Issei, although that never prevented Azazel from not trusting them and only saw them as another group of sinners. He looked for Issei but never found him, just like Beelzebub. While that was happening, Lucifer barely managed to become the new king of hell, killing the former demon king who had a last name identical to her name. After killing him, she took the new throne and improved the situations in hell, doing almost the same thing that her father did in hell. She got rid of everyone who did not want her to occupy the throne. She helped those who needed them, and with something she obtained after stealing something from her father, she created a new hell. She created the inflaming where demons live peacefully, and even went looking for her sister Beelzebub, but never found her. Like Issei, she searched and searched but never found him. But while that was happening, in heaven the second mistake of the angels happened while God was sleeping. His children judged the human Eve, thinking that she had eaten the forbidden fruit from the Garden of Eden, but it all turned out to be a deception of a red-eyed albino snake. Adam, to discover that his beloved was banished, decided to make everyone look ridiculous by eating apples. The forbidden fruit in front of all the angels. His sister, Adam, was going to do it too, but would be left unconscious by Adam, but not before asking for forgiveness and saying goodbye to her. He did not want her to suffer the consequences of her sin and would swear to protect his beloved and sister no matter what. Centuries later. Unknown narrates. As far back as I can remember, I was born into a small herd of cavemen, struggling to survive in the Great White. It would be a long time before I had a name. In the pack we recognized each other and communicated through smells and grunts. I never knew who my father was, and I doubt very much that my mother did either. I learned from her everything she could teach me while I was learning to walk and run. Even though I was just a child, I was the smartest in the pack. That was my secret and greatest shame. That was because in my pack being intelligent was not a good thing, much less being different from the rest. If you were, they left you outside to die in the snow of the Great White Man, even if you could die of hunger or cold, although I never understood that fear until that day that would mark me and I would meet him. The man had come to the pack, a stranger who had crossed the entire Great White. No man dared travel it alone, but he did and he survived. Besides that, he carried weapons I had never seen in my life, and in the short time it would take a wolf to eat a baby, cutting it up with his fangs. He had worked his way up to become the new leader of the pack, at which point everyone growled in approval. Even those bleeding out on the cave floor. Well, I just closed my eyes, praying that when I opened them I might not be that smart anymore, but instead, I was the only one who realized that there was something to be afraid of at that moment. Some time later the little boy would be sitting in front of the campfire. The stranger, the new leader of the pack, would approach him to talk to him. I know how lonely you feel, little one. You've never met anyone like you. You can talk. If others hear you and want to hurt you, I won't allow it, said the young and intelligent caveman, sitting next to the boy. The child would struggle, but he would manage to speak correctly, and he would respond to the leader of the pack. I didn't know there were more people who could make sounds, the boy said with some difficulty speaking. And there are a few people scattered in packs of the 8 men, scattered throughout the country. All of them were born different from their pack, with more intelligence than they should have, the man answered the boy. Do you know this? How do these things happen? The boy asked the man, confused and curious. I grew up in a pack that was afraid of everything that was outside the cave. They screamed and cried every time the fireball hit. Every day of my life, from the moment I was born, I listened to them, until one day they were right, and the end for them came, he said seriously. Then he would turn to look at the boy, and then continue talking. It is not important why we have this intelligence or why we are different. The important thing is why, us, you and me, the others who are different from their packs, we are the ones destined to become true masters of the world around us, the man finished saying seriously. After that he would see how the boy pointed to the rest of the pack and then spoke. And them? The boy asked, looking at the man. They will help us become what we are predetermined to be, the man replied simply. And how? How will they help us? The child asked without knowing, sounding confused to speak. There is no need for them to do anything, they just have to be there doing nothing. How will they do it? Simple, it is in their nature not to do something, the man responded. The boy only became more confused by this response, to which he would ask, slightly diverting the subject. What happened to your pack? How did it end? The boy asked. Like other packs in these places that meet their end, he smiles and his teeth sharpen something, found them, his teeth transform into fangs, and the paths grow the biggest and strongest, something hungry, the stranger finished saying. His body began to change shape, and once it finished transforming it showed a large monster. And before the child's tearful eyes, he kills one by one, and as if one by one the entire herd, the child would try to do something, so throwing himself at the beast with its weapons in hand, he would try to avoid or stop the slaughter, but with just one hand he would stop the child, lifting him with it, he would bring him a little closer to him and would speak. Haha, just look at you, you're a ghost now, a finger being that doesn't even know it's dead ghost, that's what I call you, and that's what you'll be called now, if you want to know my name, look for me and show me your strength, said the beast, dropping the boy to the floor. After that he would leave the place, leaving the boy alone, surrounded by the blood of his deceased pack. Making him understand that the world that surrounded his pack was more dangerous than he thought. As the boy passed by he would calm down, take the weapons and the skin that the beast used to use in its human form, and approach the entrance of the cave. Right now he had nothing in it and no one, why stay in that place? So he would say to himself, if that thing can't survive out there, in the great white, so can I, although if he thought carefully about the situation, perhaps the boy was just looking for the quickest way to die. He would never find what he was looking for anyway, but he would find something among all the falling snow. It was a black being from head to toe, made of dark metal, gold and silver in a dark tone. The fire enveloped it and emitted the heat of the fireball in the sky. The being saw it, did not give it much importance seeing that it was dead, but passed by the notary that was still alive. "Are you conscious?" the being asked with a non-human voice. "Yes," answered the child, named as a ghost by the beast that eradicated his entire herd. This same child would turn to look at the being and speak. "Darkness cannot speak, what are you?" said the child with some difficulty. "How do you know?" "You only recently learned to speak, little ghost," the being replied. "How do you know my name?" asked the ghost. "It's not important, but I can know what you want above all else in the world: pain, punishment, revenge. It's something I want for certain people too. I would help you find what's yours, but I don't want to waste time," said the being, and then continued walking, but would be stopped by the boy. "Please help me," the ghost begged desperately. "What?" the being asked, bending down a little to hear him better. "Then revenge, I want to avenge my pack, I want to feel the heat of the fireball again, the fire itself," the child responded weakly. "Do you want revenge? Do you want to stay alive, feel the heat of the sun and fire once again? But above all, at what cost?" asked the being. The child would look up and see the place where his eyes should be. "I'll give you anything, my clothes, my weapons, I'll search and do whatever you want, I'll give you my body, I'll follow you, I'll give you my soul, but please, help me," the desperate child begged. The being would only see him for a short moment, then would bring his right hand to the child's face and begin to introduce his hellish fire through the mouth, eyes or nose of the child, who only screamed in pain. The boy was waking up, being surrounded by mammoths, which looked at him with confusion and curiosity. The man who had eradicated the young ghost's pack was still traveling through the great white, but he would stop when he saw what was in front of him. "It's been a long time since we last saw each other, little ghost," said the man, seeing Ghost. But in front of him was a being from hell riding a burning mammoth, someone who used to be called a ghost, who is still a man, but at the same time, is truly a ghost. Many have called him Rider, but his true name and purpose is to be the spirit of vengeance, or as his new master and boss calls him, the Phantom Avenger. Chapter 3. The Fall from Heaven and the Return. The Avenger, a being known by all as one of the most powerful demons, the supernatural world seeks him to end him, enemy of the devil and supposedly also of God, has been punishing every angel or demon that crossed his path. Even the fallen have begun to fall before his infernal flames. In exchange for their souls, the Avenger has granted part of his powers to human beings who, like him, sought revenge by wanting to kill those who had harmed them once in the past. Therefore, the Avenger became stronger with the souls of his servants and was able to finish off more of his enemies. What was once Issei, the angel of justice, was now just an empty shell that sought the death of those who have ever hurt him and will not stop until he annihilates the last of those sinners, with only one goal in his new life: to punish, give pain and take revenge on the angels. Annihilate the demons for being identical to their brothers in heaven, and destroy the fallen for thinking that just by repenting they will be forgiven. Issei had died, and in his place, there was the Avenger, or known by supernatural beings as Zarathos, a name imposed on them for not knowing his, but three people had a feeling of who he really was. But leaving that aside, let's go to where the Avenger was. With a completely black armor, his head exposed showing his skull engulfed in flames, 10 wings on his back made of ashes, in front of him, what would be the bloodiest battle between the factions. The battle between heaven and hell was taking place, something that would be taken advantage of by him, so looking at the sky he would see the entrance to heaven open. The day will be the day in which heaven would burn and fall along with its inhabitants, the sinful angels who once harmed Issei, the angel of justice. Grower effect in HD plus Ultra. The blast of energy had wiped out most of the warriors, both angelic and demonic, the culprit being a gigantic being known by many as Trahixa. This same one was battling against a western dragon of red color and the same size as him. This dragon was known as the firstborn of his own species. His name was Great Red, one of the currently existing dragon gods. Both were in a battle, the winner would be the one to kill the other. On their way they were only eradicating the warriors in their path, but while they were fighting somewhere else another battle was taking place. Yeah, but who do we have here? It's Gabriel's hitch, said Lucifer in front of his younger sister. Both clashed weapons, a demonic sword and an angelic sword, but something could be noticed in Lucifer, and that was that now on his head, he had two white horns, and on his lower back, he had a long black tail with the tip of a spear at the end. Lucifer, sister, end this once and for all, Gabriel asked with tears in his eyes. Lucifer would only frown and kick his younger sister in the belly, noticing something. To which he would smile maliciously and look his sister in the eyes. I see that father has already given you your well-deserved punishment. Damn hitch, Lucifer said maliciously. Gabriel knew what he was talking about, so he lowered his head sadly. That's what you deserve, after everything you did to Issei. You don't deserve the happiness of having a family, Lucifer finished saying. Charging demonic energy into his sword and would launch a slash in the air in Gabriel's direction. This same slash would launch a blast of energy that would head at full speed to Gabriel, but an invisible barrier would protect her. Not so fast, Lucifer said, a voice coming from a light descending from the sky. Father, both sisters said, Lucifer angrily and Gabriel with hope. This is not the way to solve all this, God said to his daughter. She would only get angry, and without saying anything she would only launch a blast of energy. God would only protect himself with a magic shield. Ah, what's wrong, father? Why do you need to protect yourself? Weren't you supposed to be omnipotent and all that stuff? Lucifer said with mockery in his voice. At that, God would let out a sigh and then look at his daughter. I am not anymore, after all, you have taken half of my power and made it yours, said God, somewhat frustrated. Lucifer would only laugh mentally. He was about to launch another attack, but would be stopped by a sword of light that collided with his own sword. Hello, dwarf, Azazel greeted with a smile, looking defiantly at Lucifer. Azazel, step aside, Lucifer said monotonously, then he would make a movement with his hand and Azazel would be thrown several meters away from Lucifer and his father. Lucifer, that was too much, God said to his daughter. What? He's still alive, but she pointing to Gabriel will die, Lucifer finished saying angrily. But the avenger. This same one was killing angel and demon that crossed his path. He just kept going straight in his trajectory. Everyone noticed that it was heaven, to which they assumed that he wanted to reach it, something that the angels did not allow, but their attempts to stop him were useless. He kept advancing. Magic had no effect on him, conventional attacks either. Only the weapons of the angels hurt the being of vengeance, but because of the armor it was impossible to hurt him. The avenger was reaching heaven, but at that moment he would be crushed by something. Aigh. Two dragons roared in anger, two swallowers of different races and colors, one white and the other red, both emperors, one known as the White Emperor, Albion, and the other known as the Red Emperor, Drake. Both dragons are the opposite of each other, Drake of Albion and Albion of Drake. The two fought, regardless of what was in their path, until they reached the faction leaders. While that was happening, the avenger was getting up and would get up from the floor, then continue on his now clear path. Then he would take care of the two dragons that dared to attack him, so killing the angels that came to him, he would take flight heading to the entrance of heaven. Once there he would be greeted by several angels who would fall before the avenger's flames, dying trying to protect their home. All the warriors would turn around and look in horror at the sky, only managing to see what was burning. Hearing the screams of the angels who were not fighting, children, women, men and the elderly screamed for help. The sky began to fall, causing more outbursts and death on the battlefield. Fireballs flew through the air and killed more supernatural beings. A silhouette would emerge from the flames, which would be recognized as the Avenger. This same one would roar, scaring everyone. After that he would launch himself with two swords in each hand and would begin to kill the demons, fallen angels and angels of heaven, without leaving any alive. In his shattered mind, only the screams of his victims and the word revenge resonated, and honoring his name, he would look for the person who has caused him the most pain in his life. He was looking for the one who was once his mother, and once he found her, not even God would save her. And that was what he did, from a distance with his beloved brother Michel. The two of them would be watching with God, Lucifer and Azazel, who watched him seriously and were prepared. They would see him heading towards them, flying at full speed with his two swords in hand. Once he reached them, he would be received by several magical attacks which would do nothing to him. He would only continue forward, going to his next victims, trying to stab Lucifer, but he would defend himself with his sword. It would break, but it would give him enough time to get away from the Avenger, who would fly away to receive an attack from Azazel, which would break his arm. Hatchet, said Lucifer, throwing him a bottle with an unknown liquid. What is it? Azazel asked. A tear from a demon, son of a succubus who had the great idea of bucking a phoenix. Lucifer responded without any interest and with simplicity. It would have been better if I hadn't asked, Azazel said, and then took the tear, mentally complaining about the taste of it, but his arm would regenerate back to normal. You see, it works, Lucifer said proudly, but she would be sent flying by the blow of a chain that threw her against a mountain. Don't get in my way, said the Avenger with his chains in hand. He had lost 3 wings, although he didn't care since they didn't influence his power. Don't get in my way, Azazel said in a whisper, and then asked, what is your goal? Azazel asked in a shout. His surviving fallen angels began to arrive at the place where he was with his father and sister. The Avenger would only raise his left hand and point at Gabriella, who was frightened at the fight that was ending. "Guilty, because of you I exist, and Issei the angel of justice is dead," said the Avenger, leaving everyone in shock, including the angels and demons who were arriving at the place. And as it has once been said, an eye for an eye, nose for a nose, scar for a scar and life for a life, Issei's for yours, the Avenger finished saying. He would take a sword from the corpse of a demon. It would be enveloped in orange flames. After that he would launch himself at the blonde, who only looked at him with terror and horror. The Avenger would ignore all the attacks that were brought to him. He only wanted to kill the ex-seraph. It was the only thing he wanted. After that, maybe, just maybe, he could rest in peace. But trying to reach her would interest Lucifer, and he would hit him in the abdomen. His hand was enveloped by a reddish energy which penetrated the Avenger's armor and stopped him momentarily. "Sorry, but I'll be the one to kill her," said Lucifer angrily. He would take Gabriel's weapon and insert it through the opening she had formed and pierce some of the Avenger's ribs. That only made him angry, so taking his sword with more force, he would stab Lucifer in the stomach, then he would take it and throw it away from him. Before that several demons would attack him, but he would only kill them with his flames. After that he would turn his attention back to Gabriel, but he would receive another attack, this one being that of Azazel. But the Avenger would only hit him in the head, leaving him unconscious instantly, and like Lucifer, several fallen angels would attack him, but he would only kill them with his flames and chains. So even more annoyed he would turn to Gabriel, but in doing so, he would only see the biblical God who looked at him seriously. The Avenger would just approach him and look him in the eyes. With a challenging look they would both look at each other. "Move aside, old man, I don't want to hurt you," said the Avenger, showing for the second time that he was reasonable. "No, not after what you did," said God, annoyed, putting his hand on the Avenger's abdomen. He was about to make his last attack, but he would speak first. "I am not just any being, old man, I am the anger, the thirst for revenge of Issei. I am his resentment and hatred. I am your own anger and hatred. I am revenant," the Avenger roared with anger and hatred. "With what you have told me, I can now clear up all my doubts. Issei, are you my child?" God asked with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. But he would only receive a blow to the stomach that made him spit blood and open his eyes in surprise. What? Impossible. He was supposed to have his divine defenses active, God thought in surprise, but the Avenger would whisper in his ear and speak. "I've already said it, I am your wrath and hatred, and not even God can escape his own wrath and hatred," said the Avenger in a whisper, lighting his hand that he had struck on fire, and then cheering an explosion and throwing God away from him into the air. After that he would look for Gabriel, but would notice that he had escaped. But the other angels were still in the place preparing to fight against him. "Pathetic beings, come for me, I will devour all of your Almayas," the Avenger shouted with hatred and annoyance. His chains would begin to swirl in all possible sides, and he would take 2 of them and then throw them at the angels, piercing them in the abdomens, and then light them in his infernal flames, killing them instantly. Then he would go for the others, beginning to kill them one by one until not leaving any of them alive. While that was happening, God began to recover. Luckily for him, he had fallen to Lucifer's side, who would comfortably greet him. "How can you be so calm?" God asked his daughter in disbelief. "We're going to die anyway, didn't you see what he did to you? Imagine me, without that divine protection, and if it hadn't been for her, your torso would have been pierced. By the way, I saw him talking to you, what did he say to you?" Lucifer asked curiously. "I found out who he is," replied the melancholic God. "And he is?" Lucifer asked haughtily. "It's Issei, but not the one we knew," God responded, getting up from the floor. Lucifer would do the same quickly. "What? But that's impossible, he's dead," said Lucifer, upset, getting up quickly. "It is, but as I already told you, it is not the one we know," said God, summoning a shield and sword. "So what are we going to do?" Lucifer asked, creating a sword and a shield. He said revenant, he said he was a revenant, that means he died, and now he is a vengeful soul. "We just have to bring him back to life again," God responded, and then went to where Issei was. Lucifer would follow him, and 10 bird wings would come out of his back, but these had a spike in the last joint. "What are you doing?" God asked Lucifer. "He's dead, right? So he can't die. If we want to revive him, we have to incapacitate him momentarily," Lucifer responded, taking flight and heading towards the Avenger, who was about to leave the place and look for Gabriel. But he would see Lucifer approaching him, so taking one of his chains, he would throw it at the albino, who would protect herself with her shield and continue on her way until she reached Issei, with the intention of stabbing him with her sword through the hole she made in his armor. But when he tried, he would see that Gabriel's sword was still in that place. Apart from that, the Avenger held his sword and broke it with brute force, and then took Gabriel's sword, which began to change shape by fusing with his flames. And he would stab Lucifer in the abdomen, knocking her out of the battle, and then letting her falling to the ground with a dry thud. After that he would be ready to leave, but would stop to feel a great pain in his chest, so looking down he would see God. He himself was holding the Avenger's ribs. After that he would transfer the little power he had left. After that the two would fall to the ground, and he would hit him with a dry blow. Look what happened to me? Issei asked, getting up from the ground, just seeing pure destruction all over the place. He felt enveloped by something, so looking at his body, he would see that he had the armor of an angel with parts of a demon, so getting up with difficulty he would see a few meters away from him, one of the people he loved the most, his grandfather, the biblical God. Ahaha, finally wake up brat, said God with difficulty and a smile. A flaming sword was piercing his abdomen. Grandpa, no, 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 what happened? What happened? Issei asked, desperately approaching God, while black tears came out of his eyes. It seems you don't remember anything, said God, and then coughed up blood. What? Remember what? Grandpa, what happened? Issei asked, confused. Well, this happened, God responded, touching the dark brown-haired man's forehead with 2 fingers, and from these same fingers a blue flame would light up, causing something to quickly pass through Issei's head. It was the Avenger destroying everything, but he knew it was him, but at the same time he couldn't consider himself the same. It was as if something inside him had controlled him all that time, and at that moment he remembered everything that happened, what happened, all those years of suffering, of being a ghost wandering the world. All those people with whom he made the devil's deal, all those he killed, destroying heaven, and all those innocent souls, all his cousins who had nothing to do with the treatment he received. I know, no, sniff, I couldn't sniff. How did it happen? Sniff, Issei cried inconsolably, putting his hands on his head. He was about to have a panic attack. Calm down, my child, said God, placing his hand on Issei's forehead, calming him to emit his aura on the brown-haired man. Grandpa, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, I had no control over my body, Issei said, black tears falling from his eyes, remembering how before falling unconscious, he had gotten up and stabbed his own grandfather when he was the Avenger. There's no need to apologize to me or tell me what I already coughs up more blood. I can't take it anymore. I'll leave at any moment. Please, Issei, make me a promise, God asked his grandson. Sniff, what sniff promise? Issei asked. Protect the innocent, be their guardian, do the work of the angel of justice, but in your own way. Please do not blame yourself for this. Those who have the worst are those who treated you badly. My child, by the way, do not forget to say goodbye to her, points to Lucifer. Yes, Grandpa, sniff, I promise you, I swear to be the protector of the innocent, their guardian, but I cannot allow sinners to get away with it. He stands up and looks at his grandfather with determination. I plan to be the avenger of the innocent. I will take the mantle, and I will be the phantom avenger, and I swear to be the executioner of those who dare to hurt an innocent. Where the blood of an innocent is shed, I will be there, and I will punish every sinner, said Issei with determination in his eyes. He was determined to follow his new path. Ah, I hope you fulfill it, my child, said God with a kind smile. His body began to shine slowly until it was enveloped by a light. After that his body would begin to dissolve into particles of light which began to rise and disappear in the sky. Issei just saw the scene, a tear would fall from his left eye, but at that moment he would remember something, so turning around he would see Lucifer bleeding on the ground. She just looked up at the sky, remembering something. Flashback. Lucifer could be seen with a 2-year-old Issei in his hands. Both were alone and had a smile of total happiness on their faces. Hey Issei, Lucifer called the little brown-haired boy. Yes, Aunt Lucifer, Issei asked with some difficulty. It was clear that he didn't have much experience speaking. How about you make me a promise? Lucifer said with a smile that hid something. Cole. Pregunto Issei. How about when you're 18 you marry me? Lucifer said with a smile. It was an innocent joke. She was sure the boy would say something unrelated to the topic, but her smile would fall, and a deep blush would form on her face at the boy's response. Why yes, I will marry Aunt Lucifer, and we will each have a beautiful family, Issei responded with a sparkle in his eyes. Lucifer would only blush more imagining her and Issei in front of his father with several guests, she in a wedding dress and Issei in a wedding suit, both giving each other their vows. But she would hear something like that, and she would turn around and be in shock, seeing her brother Azazel and sister Beelzebub, along with her father. She would only blush more with embarrassment. Please, my daughter, find someone quickly, God asked with a smile and shaking his head. Lucifer would only blush more, and then hear the laughter of his 2 younger brothers, thus embarrassing himself more. Vindel flashback. Should I curse you? Gabriel said Lucifer angrily and with a slight blush, but she would spit out a large amount of blood. Issei would come to her and try to treat her wound. Please don't talk, I don't want to lose you, Issei said hurriedly and seriously. Issei, Lucifer exclaimed, seeing the young adult in front of him. I said I didn't speak, don't waste your strength, said Issei desperately. From his hands came a blue flame that slowly healed Lucifer's wound. It doesn't matter if you close this stupid wound, I've lost a lot of blood, Lucifer said disinterestedly. "Ah, what a shitty reunion," said Issei, trying to vent but he couldn't and he just started crying black tears. "Hehehehe, now I remember why I fell in love with you, you always made me smile all the time," said Lucifer with a sweet and loving smile to a shocked Issei. What? I asked in shock. At that Lucifer would only let out a sigh and then spit out more blood, after that he would speak. "I don't have any more time, but I won't leave without doing this," said Lucifer, taking Issei and kissing him, leaving him surprised, but he would reciprocate the kiss. After a while Lucifer would break it and then speak. "Be happy, love," said Lucifer before closing his eyes and falling to the floor. Without any breathing, without any heartbeat, without any movement. Answer, no, please answer for buck's sake, answer sniff please answer me. Chapter 4. Because. Even when your leaders are dead. You keep fighting. You hear the cries of the innocent asking for help. And you just keep killing each other, that only makes you. Guilty. Storyteller. Issei could be seen on the beautiful summit of a mountain. He was leaning against a tree and looking down the mountain, only seeing hell itself calling. Then he would look up and see the sky destroyed, but it was no longer burning. He had done that, he had killed every angel, demon or fallen that crossed his path, had any survived. Yes, several actually, many fled, preferring to disappoint their leader than to lose their own lives and those of their families. Then he would look back and see a grave, the grave where Lucifer lay. Then he would look to his left and see an unconscious Azazel. He was about to wake up, but Issei would hit him on the head, leaving him unconscious again. After that he would take some things, including a hooded cloak. After that he would put it on and cover himself, completely preventing his appearance from being seen. Years later. A shadow could be seen in the distance from a test. It was noticeably that of a man. He was riding a black horse with red eyes. His clothing was a jacket trench coat with a hood, pants and boots, all in black. He saw the town and all its inhabitants, but he did not pay attention to their genders, appearances, or ages. Rather, he focused on what they did. Robberies, murders in the shadows, lies, deceptions, beatings, among other things, was what the subject saw, something he hated, but he would take charge of eradicating every sinner who crossed his path. So preparing himself, he and his horse would be engulfed by fire, which upon fading would reveal that the subject was the Avenger, thus revealing himself to be Issei, or known by all the human world as the Ghost Rider. His horse was now skeletal, made of black bone and wrapped in fire. After that he would whip the horse's strap, giving it the order to advance, and in no time the horse would be going at full speed against the village. In his hand an explosion of fire was caused, the same fire spread, and when it faded away, he showed some chains with a butcher hook at the end. He would take the part of the hook and throw it, grabbing a villager, then pull him and catch him with his other hand. After that he would force him to look him in the eyes, burning his soul and devouring it afterwards. After that he would move on to his next victim, a sinner who abandoned her own child at birth, murderer of her father, mother and husband, tearful and murderer of innocence. He would kill her quickly and take her soul with his chains, and then devour it. After that he would move on to his next victim, and the next, until the sun appeared on the horizon. Walking away from the burning village, Issei would calmly continue on his way, leaving the corpses of his victims behind, with an expression of horror and terror on their faces. Issei just remained calm, thinking about how he got to this moment, and it was something normal after all, he had been through a lot. After the war, he wandered around the world, staying for a long time in what is known as America and then heading east, having to make a long journey to avoid having to cross the entire sea. Throughout his journey he killed every sinner that crossed his path, killing them physically and devouring their souls, growing stronger with each soul he ate. At the same time he was granting part of his power to the humans who sought the same thing as him, their own justice through revenge, punishing sinners and bringing pain to those who dared to harm the innocent. More than 100 people now carried his power. These same people were scattered around the world, interconnected with the original owners of their powers. But there was something that bothered Issei. A demon, son of the original demon king, Mephisto Lucifer, a bastard from Issei's point of view, the demon has been killing his servants and stealing the power that Issei gave them. After that he made deals with other humans and gave them to them so he could control them and make them his servants. That bothered Issei, and since then he has been looking for him, but the closer he was to him, he always ran away. The reason was that Issei was stronger than him because of his abilities, but the brown-haired boy knew that this was bad, since he would not always be stronger than Mephisto, and at any moment the devil would attack him and defeat him. But not everything was bad or simple for the brown-haired boy. When his grandfather brought him back to life, he also transferred part of his memory to him, and among the memories was the location of God's library, a place where all the information of the universe and more was, although he had not yet reached the place, since it was difficult to access it. But leaving that aside, right now Issei was at the front of a battle of 3 people. One person was wearing a crimson armor with golden parts. On his back 2 dragon wings protruded. Throughout the armor green gems could be seen. The other person was wearing a whitish armor with golden parts. On his back and part of the shoulder, 2 pieces of armor came out that projected 2 wings of energy. Throughout the armor there were blue gems. The other person is wearing a bluish armor with gold and white parts. The unprotected parts allowed a grayish-black color to be seen. In his left hand, he carries a sword of the same colors. On his back a white cape protrudes that moves with the wind. The 3 of them fought in the sky. The white and red ones stayed in the air with their own wings. The one in the blue armor floated in the air magically. Issei recognized them perfectly. The white one the bearer of the sealed celestial dragon, Albion the white dragon the enemy and rival of Drake. The red one the bearer of the sealed celestial dragon, Drake the red dragon enemy and rival, one with the ability to steal the power of his enemies and the other with the ability to potential his own power. The one in the blue armor was the bearer of the sealed dragon queen, Tiamat the dragon of Karma Chaos, one of the 5 great dragon kings, had been sealed along with the white and red dragon when he tried to stop the battle of these same due to her sealing and events that occurred in the battle of Albion and Drake. Now they were 3 dragons that were considered enemies and would have the objective of demonstrating who is the superior. Issei just watched them continue fighting. He was going to ignore them and continue on his way, but the Drake carrier would attack the Tiamat carrier, causing him to bleed. At that Issei would feel an impulse and say, "He is engulfed in flames, the blood of an innocent has been spilled," Issei finished saying, becoming the avenger. After that he would create chains with his fire and throw them, trapping the red and white emperor who, after the attack of the Drake bearer, attacked the one of Tiamat. Issei would pull their chains attracting them to him, holding them by their respective necks he would speak to them. They attacked him, they attacked an innocent man, why? Issei asked, lifting the 2 into the air, squeezing their necks, preventing the 2 from breathing. "He's just a weakling, I fight," said the Sekiruyute with arrogance and disgust. At that moment the last thing he saw was his life and all his sins. Returning to reality he stopped struggling, his eyes were burned, and he only said illegible murmurs, as Issei would say, alive in body and mind, but without a soul, which was devoured by Issei, who turned to look at the Hakuryuku. "Por que lo atacaste?" Pregunto Issei seriamente. He didn't say anything, he just watched in fear and horror. After having heard Albion's words, "I'm sorry, my friend, but he is far superior to us. I'm sorry that these are your last moments of life. As I thought," Issei said before seeing the Hakuryuku's eyes burning his soul and devouring it afterwards. After that he would throw both living corpses to the ground. After that he would approach the bearer of Tiamat. This one was lying on the ground. Issei knew it. Again he could not save a person, something that disappointed him as well, to which he would only approach him and put him behind a tree, resting his back on it. After that his orange flames would change to light blue and he would heal the wounds that the bearer of Tiamat had. After that he would withdraw his carbo, being surprised to see a woman. After that he would return to his original form, looking at the woman with surprise. "Wow, I didn't see that coming," said Issei, surprised. "What? Do you think women can't fight?" the Tiamat bearer asked angrily. "It's not because of that, I just thought you were a man because of the armor. It's formal that I was surprised by this," Issei responded calmly. "Yes, several people have told me that," said the girl with blood running down the side of her lips. "You're dying," Issei reported, letting out a heavy sigh. "Tell me something I don't know," looks into Issei's eyes, seeing the sadness in him. "Can you stay? I would like someone strong to stay by my side on my death day," the girl asked, dejected. Issei would just nod and sit next to her, leaning his back against the tree. "What's your name?" Issei asked calmly. "Does it matter?" he answered with a disinterested question. "So what do I put on your grave?" Issei replied with the simplest question he could think of. "Anko Uzumaki," the girl answered, revealing her name. "Uzumaki? Hey, what is this Uzumaki thing? I've heard a lot about them," Issei asked curiously. "Uzumaki, humans with the ability to surpass supernaturals," Anko responded simply. "I see," Issei said, looking at the sky, feeling the breeze of the wind on his face. "And you are?" Anko asked, looking at Issei. "Issei Nephilim, son of an angel and a demon, obviously grandson of the deceased biblical god," Issei responded calmly. "Wow, but he's a demigod," said Anko mockingly. "Demigod?" Issei asked, confused. "Nah, nothing, just a stupid thing of mine," he sighs sadly and closes his eyes a little. "By the way, a question, why can't you save me?" Anko asked, turning to look at him. "My specialty is not healing skills, besides, whatever they attacked you with, it caused damage to your soul," Issei responded. He would put one of his hands under his clothes and take out a small box. "Do you want it?" Issei asked, looking at her. "No thanks, he didn't smoke," Anko replied. Issei would only put the box back in its place. "One last request?" Issei asked. Anko would only see his abdomen, right on the chest of the armor. "You are God's nephew, according to you can take it out." I don't want them to keep using it as a weapon, said Anko. All her armor would disappear in a flash of light blue, and above her chest, there would be a light blue gem, surrounded by a golden border. You're talking about Tiamat? Issei asked, confused. Yes, sheds a few tears. I promised her that I would free her, but apparently I wasn't strong enough to live until that moment, Anko said, some tears falling down her cheeks. Yes I can, Issei answered, touching the celestial gem. It would shine, and a flash would be present in the place. And what will you do with her, Issei asked. Behind him was a large pale blue western dragon with sky blue scales. The key with me and I will give him a decent burial, said the dragon forcefully. Tiamat, I know you want to vent, kill them and all that, but don't keep the sadness and pain hidden, don't keep them in, let them out, Issei said calmly. I will, but not now, she wouldn't have liked to see me cry, Tiamat said in pain. Okay, Issei said, wrapping Anko's corpse in chains. These would be secured by Issei. After that he would lift her in his arms and hand her to Tiamat, who took her with her claws. Do whatever you want with the corpses of those two fools, he said, pointing at the ex-Hacker Yuete and ex-Hacker Yuaku. But they're alive, said Tiamat, confused and angry with them. In body and mind, but in soul, haha, they received a fate worse than death, Issei responded with a somewhat sadistic smile on his face. What did you do? Tiamat asked, looking at him. I am the son of an angel and a demon at the same time. In the war one got something from Lucifer, part of his power. He gave me several abilities including soul manipulation, and well, I was hungry, so I made them see all the evil they have done, and then I devoured their souls, Issei responded with disinterest, but he would remember the kiss his aunt had given him. At the same time he remembered how something was introduced to him through the kiss. Oh, but cough, and what happened to those useless Drake and Albion? Tiamat asked angrily at the mention of the two of them, and at the same time somewhat uncomfortable by what Issei said. It was obvious to her that he was telling the truth. I tried to eat them, but the bastards ran away, Issei replied, annoyed. Then he would put his hand to his mouth and whistle. When we arrived we would hear a horse scream and his own steps riding. Tiamat was surprised to see how a black skeletal horse wrapped in hellish flames came towards them at a supernatural speed, destroying every obstacle that crossed its path. Haha, hey girl, Issei said, stopping the horse and petting its head. Female? How the hell can that thing be female? Tiamat asked incredulously. Well, this is where our paths separate, said Issei, getting on his horse. Yes, she turns around, but when she remembered saying goodbye to him, she turned around to look at him again, but Issei was no longer there. He disappeared, but how did I not notice? The dragoness asked herself, confused, seeing the place where Issei was before next to his horse. Chapter 5. Helping a fox. Chains could be heard being dragged, the dance of fire could be heard in the place, as well as the flapping of some gigantic birds. The slow step suggested that the one walking was injured, so the question is, who was injured? That person was Issei Nephilim, or known as the Phantom Avenger by his attackers. Right now in an abandoned church, Issei turned into the Avenger was surrounded by angels from heaven. Issei looked at them. He was surprised to see them, even by their essence and aura. He could assume that all of them were a small group of those who fled that time when Issei burned the original heaven and filled hell with his own flames, being him. Who made it out to be in the hell that humans know, a desolate place of life where sinners suffer for eternity, filled with a hellfire belonging to Issei and lava from the great scorching heat of the place. But leaving that aside, the angels were holding Issei's limbs through golden chains that could contain various seals and magical patterns. Issei recognized them as one of the different types of magic that humans had created. Supernatural beings are so pathetic to have to use, according to you, the useless magic of beings inferior to them. Issei laughed like a psychopath, while his body was pierced by various swords, some of which he recognized as pieces of the Excalibur that was created after the disappearance of the original Excalibur. Shut up, you dirty demon, you will be brought before Michael-sama in the new heaven for your trial, said the leader of the group with annoyance, while pointing a sword of light at Issei's skull. New sky? Interesting, and what happened to the original? Issei asked, interested. It was renovated and left for the pure souls of the deceased, and that is precisely the place you will never go to, damn demon, said another of the angels, looking at Issei with hatred, and without anyone noticing, the ends of his wings were slowly turning black. Sorry, but the ones who are doubtful will not go to that place will be you. After all, several of you along with Michael handed Kakabiel to the Nephilim Issei on a silver platter, Issei said, annoyed. Issei? That damn spawn of the devil deserved it, he was an abomination of nature itself, said another angel. His left wing was completely dyed black. His wings are buck, this is the best I've seen, said Issei, excitedly, seeing the black cousins of some and the completely black wings of others. What? The angels asked, horrified, but before they did or said anything Issei would speak. It seems that those things that Michael gave them are beginning to fail, pointing with one of his hands to some black rings with cracks, that the angels had. They did so many things that apparently those rings reached their limit and could no longer bear the impurities in their souls, but as you know, it is time for your judgment. Dirty sinners, said Issei before being enveloped by a burst of sky blue and white flames. The chains that held Issei began to be pulled through the fire, the magic seals that summoned them were absorbed by them, entering the fire and leaving the crossing of angel and fallen angel surprised. Once the fire cleared, it revealed the Avenger in blue flames, or known to humans as the Phantom Vigilante. But something surprised and horrified the angels. On the back of the Vigilante were 8 pairs of wings that emitted the power of an archangel, seraph, and partly of the biblical god, of a beautiful silver color, with a faint light blue and sky blue glow. These same ones, but silver, are 8 pairs, 16 wings in total, and they shine faintly in a light blue and blue color. Okay, gentlemen, he removes his back from his body and throws them to one side. Using his own fire, he would create the same chains that held him back a few seconds ago, but with a hook at the end of each one. Do you want to start with this? Who attacks first? You or me? Issei asked calmly and serenely, already ready for battle. Impossible. How is it that you have the power of Father? Said the leader of the angels who were there. I was created by him, God created me, he created justice, the angel of justice, but you, points at the angels accusingly, created my counterpart, the Avenger, the one you called Zarathos, the Phantom Avenger, the demonic angel, the angel of vengeance, and for that, you will be punished for your sins. You are no longer worthy of carrying the little celestial light that has been granted to you by God. Ex-angels of heaven, for which you are guilty, said the Avenger seriously and coldly. When the ex-angels of heaven least expected it, they were wrapped in the chains of the Avenger, and then pulled by him. Even turned into the Phantom Vigilante, Issei would tear off the wings of one of the ex-angels, then throw them aside and leave the closed wound of the ex-angel wrapped in chains. After that he would go towards the leader of the group, who was the only one who had wings at that time. He was an archangel with 5 pairs, but the wings on his left were completely black. Darker than coal but lighter than night. Last words before being human? Issei asked calmly while holding the leader's wings. Hirot, said the ex-angel of heaven. Issei did not show anger or hatred or any negative emotion. He remained calm, so without wasting any more time he ripped off the wings of the ex-archangel of heaven, causing him to scream in pain. After that Issei healed his wound, collected his chains, took the pieces of the Excalibur and nailed them into him, forming a Christian cross. After all that he would leave the church and see the moonlight and the beautiful night sky. Reality. Issei blinked as he remembered how he banished some corrupt ex-angels from heaven. Right now he was eating in the dining room of a home, his home, or as it is also known, God's library. After having a little breakfast, he would leave the dining room, passing through a door and entering his grandfather's same library. Hundreds of thousands of books of different colors, with different titles and details, black, gold, silver, red, etc. All ordered and arranged correctly on thousands of white shelves with gold details, one positioned above and behind another. Issei would look up without being able to see the ceiling of the place. It was as if it were infinite. Issei put that aside and headed to a white gate with gold details, opening it and going into the room inside. He found a small room. In front of him were 3 doors with a black sphere with runes and magic seals. These doors showed different parts of the world. The one on the right showed a jungle, the one in the middle a desert, and the one on the left, the exit of a cave that led to a mountain like the ones that appeared in Doctor Strange 1 when he fought in the sanctuary where he got his cape. Issei just went to the middle one and turned the sphere. What was shown on the other side of the glass door was now an alley, and the time was late at night. After that Issei would open the door and go through it. After that he would close the door, making the gate that would close the passage. After that a magic circle appeared above him and he began to go down, changing his clothes to those of a motorcyclist. After that through another magic circle he invoked his transport. Getting on his motorcycle, he would start it up and start riding out of the alley and driving through the streets of Kyoto. Somewhere else. Mom, Dad, a little 6-year-old blonde-haired girl constantly shouted, but what stood out about her were the 9 fox tails on her lower back and 2 fox ears on her head. In front of him were 2 gigantic foxes, both Kyabas fighting in a duel to the death. How could you do this to us? Kenpachi the golden fox demanded, blocking the orange fox's attack with about 4 of her 9 tails. It's not obvious, Yusaka. I'm already fed up with you being the leader of the yokai. Now I will take the mandate of our species, shouted the orange fox known as Kenpachi. A purple sphere would form from his mouth. After that, Yusaka the golden fox would throw it, dodging the attack, which passed by and fell in the forest, exploding in a gigantic explosion that destroyed everything around it. But Issei. This is really interesting, said Issei while smoking a cigarette. He was on top of a building watching the battle of both Kyabas. Behind him was his motorcycle. But in the distance he would see how a little girl was on top of the rubble of an ancient destroyed palace that alarmed him slightly, and he just got on his motorcycle creating chains with his hellish fire and becoming the Phantom Avenger. After that he would jump off the building before continuing forward and falling into the void. Issei took one of his chains and threw it, hooking it to the building, then pulling it and making his motorcycle go through the windows of the building as if it were a normal road. Back in battle. And what about our daughter? Yusaka asked angrily, doing the same attack as Kenpachi and throwing it, being dodged by the orange fox. I don't care about her, did you really think I cared about you and that girl? You are so pathetic, said Kenpachi with disinterest, breaking the heart of the 6-year-old girl who saw and heard them fight. Bastard, Yusaka shouted angrily, throwing herself at Kenpachi, but he received it and threw it into the air and then created another sphere of energy and threw it at Yusaka, causing an explosion that seriously injured her. Stupid hitch, said Kenpachi. He would hear a sob, so he would turn around and see his daughter. He would just look at her coldly, so charging an attack in his snout, he was about to kill his daughter. Yusaka tried to do something, but couldn't move because of the wound she had, but before the gigantic orange fox fired his attack, some chains wrapped around his snout, thus deflecting the attack. I'm sorry, little fox, but I won't allow you to harm the innocent, said Issei, turned into the Avenger, in a mocking tone. After that he would pull his chains, making Kenpachi touch the ground with his snout. He got upset and looked ahead with his eyes open to recognize who was in front of him. And it can't be Zarathos, Kenpachi thought, horrified. I would like to play with Taigo, but I have to help the other Kyuubi, and the girl, said Issei, and then hit the ground with his right fist. After that, a hole would be made in the ground where Issei dropped the chains that held Kenpachi. After a few seconds the hole would begin to grow, and from it came out tentacles and chains wrapped in fire, which held Kenpachi and then pulled him into the hole that was getting bigger. The fox tried to escape, but couldn't. He tried to attack, but the chains began to absorb his power. He tried to use his tails, but the tentacles and chains held them, and he only managed a short time before being swallowed by the earth after the hole closed. See you in hell, you damn wretch, Issei said under his breath. After that he would return to his human form and approach the badly wounded Kyuubi. What do you want? Yusaka asked, her daughter clung to her fur out of fear. Nothing, just help, Issei responded calmly. Help, Yusaka asked, looking weaker. You lost a lot of blood, you better sleep, said Issei, appearing in front of the fox and touching her forehead. She would fall asleep. Get away from me, Mom, the little kitsune screamed, falling in front of Issei, who only smiled. He crouches down to be at the girl's height and strokes her head. Calm down, little one, I just want to heal her. By the way, what's your name? He said and asked Issei with a smile. Do you really just want to help? The girl asked, not very sure. That's how little she is, but I have to take care of her somewhere else, and quickly before her condition gets worse, Issei said, looking seriously at the girl. Okay, by the way, my name is Kunu, said the girl, now known as Kunu. Okay Kunu, now help me take your mother to a safe place, Issei asked, taking out one of his chains. Hi, said the little kitsune, going to where her mother was. Chapter 6. Mom, Kunu exclaimed when she saw her mother wake up. Both were in Issei's room. He was nowhere to be found in his grandfather's library. He had left and returned to Kyoto to take care of and find out what happened, since Kunu knew nothing about what had happened in her mother's kingdom. Kunu? My girl, Yusaka exclaimed, hugging the little kitsune by surprise. Mom, I'm glad you're awake, Kunu said, tears of happiness falling down her cheeks. Kunu, my girl, what happened? Yusaka asked to see what was happening in a place she didn't know, but she could smell the scent of a man and that of an angel, demon, and fallen, all three combined into one, which confused her. He brought us here and took care of you, the little girl V answered, looking her mother in the eyes. Him? My girl, who are you referring to? Yusaka asked, not understanding. The one who prevented father from hurting me and left you unconscious. He brought us here, he told me that it is his home, and he left us here to be safe, answered Kunu. The Asta whispered as she remembered the Phantom Avenger, or as she knew him, Zarathos, defeating her husband, turning into a human and leaving her unconscious. And the gift, where is it? Yusaka asked nervously. He came back to our home to find out what happened and see if he could help in any way, Kunu replied, leaning on her mother. And tell me, daughter, did he tell you his name? Yusaka asked her daughter. Yes, he told me that everyone calls him Zarathos, like the story you told me about how if I'm not good he will punish me, but he told me that his real name is Issei Nephilim, Kunu answered innocently. I see, Yusaka said quietly, but then she realized something. Kunu, what about my clothes? Yusaka asked, realizing her nakedness, being covered by a sheet. That's it, it's here, said Kunu, getting up from his mother and approaching a chair next to the bed, taking some clothes. I gave them to Issei to clean them, and then he brought them here, answered Kunu with a smile. I hope you haven't seen me naked, she thought. Thanks, my girl, wait a moment for me, Yusaka thanked her daughter with a smile. Of course, Mom, said Kunu with a smile. Well, my girl, wait here for a moment, said Yusaka approaching the door. He would open it a crack, then sniff around a bit, making sure no one was in the place. Come on Kunu, said Yusaka, taking her daughter's hand and leaving the room. Ivan took the left, but at that moment from behind him being on the right a voice would sound. Are they leaving so quickly? What's with that coldness? Not even a hug or kiss? Issei asked mockingly. Yusaka would turn around to see him, but was only scared to recognize him. Behind me Kunu, he puts his daughter behind him. What do you want? Asked Yusaka, seriously preparing to fight. But Issei just raised his hand, stopping her. Look, first of all, I just want to help. Second, I'm not so much of a bastard as to leave a girl without a family, so you better not attack me. And third, I admit that your body seems perfect to me, attractive and beautiful and those things, but you haven't even invited me for a cup of coffee. Apart from that, I don't plan on doing any of that to you. Like I said, I'm not so much of a bastard as to do that to a badly injured woman, said Issei calmly, and since he wasn't, it was politically impossible for either of the two to harm him. Yusaka just closed her eyes distrustfully, but without her realizing it she looked Issei in the eyes. Her daughter passed by her left side and stopped in front of Issei, both being very far from Yusaka, who, realizing this, was about to do something, but Kunu stepped forward. Hello Mr. Issei, Kunu greeted, hugging Issei by the legs. Hello little one, Issei greeted, caressing Kunu's head, who purred a little. Yusaka was just surprised at such an interaction, but Issei, realizing that, would speak. Hello Miss Yusaka, could you come with me? I would like to talk to you, Issei said kindly. That's sure, Yusaka said, a little nervous. The three of them were in a beautiful meadow, Kunu playing with some animals in the distance, and Yusaka and Issei sitting on a white bench with details and parts made of gold. What are we here for? Yusaka asked, a cup and saucer of tea in her hands. The talk. I would like to know why two Kaibas were fighting in the human world, especially when they were fighting surrounded by innocents, Issei responded calmly, but Yusaka could feel the anger in his words. Well, I didn't want to fight there, but I mean Kenpachi attacked me at that time, being in the human world, Yusaka answered. Who did it? Issei asked. Yusaka would nod his head, and Issei would see that he was telling the truth. To see the fox's soul, I see yours split into two sides. Issei asked again. That's right, they split into two, one supported Kenpachi and the other me, but I don't know exactly who were enemies and who were allies, so I stayed away from them and only worried about protecting my girl and fighting Kenpachi, Yusaka answered, hurt. Issei would only let out a sigh. Look, as you know, what happened was not okay, and Issei said, but would be interrupted by Yusaka. And what did you want me to do? I couldn't leave my daughter alone, I couldn't take the battle somewhere else, apart from that the same day and moment that I found out was when they attacked me, said Yusaka, annoyed with Issei. You could have done a teleportation spell or created a pocket dimension to trap him, and you could have even used a retention or capture skill or technique, but as I see it, you only think that power is everything in a battle, which is not true. You don't need to leave your opponent badly injured to win, Issei said, seriously looking into Yusaka's eyes, which scared her. Sorry, I didn't think about that, Yusaka said shyly and scared, lowering her ears. Issei would only let out a heavy sigh. Well, we better leave it aside and talk about other things, and before you ask and worry, some of my workers are helping in Kyoto, Issei said calmly. Who? Yusaka asked, looking at him. Some friends of mine, don't worry, Issei replied calmly, but a drop of sweat fell down the side of his head. And Kyoto? Ready? There are 23 of you, and you guys said a ghost rider riding a burning mammoth. What a little ghost, I've been riding for 34, said another ghost rider, but with the power of the vigilante in him, riding a horse. Seriously, Carter Slade, I already have 107 renegade yokai dead, said another avenger ghost rider arriving with the other two. Fuck you, Caleb, Ghost and Carter exclaimed angrily, being watched by the yokai who were on Yusaka's side, who were scared and nervous. God's library garden. Except some friends, said Issei looking into space, remembering several silly and crazy things. Well, Yusaka said uncomfortably. But whatever, you know what to do from now on, said Issei, watching Kunu playing far away from them. No, her ears fall and she looks at the ground. After a few seconds in silence, she turns to look at Issei. Who exactly are you? Yusaka asked curiously. I am the one you call Zarathos, yes, that same phantom avenger that the red and white lizard spoke of, but my name is Issei Nephilim, Issei responded. Nephilim? I've never heard of it, Yusaka said, confused. Issei would just look at him confused. Do an apostrophe T, you know what a Nephilim is? Issei asked, confused. No, I've never heard that, Yusaka replied simply. Nephilim, or the Nephilim, which I highly doubt, are the third original race, you know, angels and demons, the angels the first and the demons the second. The Nephilims are the third race to exist in the world, Issei responded calmly and serenely. And what are the Nephilims exactly? Yusaka asked. Children of an angel and a demon, my parents. I won't tell you, but I can tell you that I met the biblical god, in fact he was my grandfather, Issei responded to a surprised Yusaka. Is that at least possible? Yusaka asked surprised. Issei would only laugh. Hahaha, it seems that those who ran away did not tell the original story, but whatever, said Issei, looking away from Yusaka and Kunu. How? Yusaka asked confused. I'll tell you, once the demons and angels lived peacefully, but because of the doves there was a war, in the war things happened between them, an angel got pregnant by a demon, that son was born, and they called him Issei, his beloved aunt called him Issei Nephilim, things happen and more things, and the child dies at 20 years old, then revives as a revenant and kills everything in sight. Until he kills the one he saw as a father and the woman he probably loved, Issei answered calmly, and with a sad smile, a tear would fall from his cheek, what could not be seen by Yusaka. That's sorry, but that sounds made up, Yusaka said nervously. Blues, I know, Your Honor, Yusaka said, Issei sadly looking at the ground. Years later. Drinking a cup of coffee, Issei would be in what looked like a museum of ancient relics. He was in his grandfather's library. Multiversal orb, with this orb you can travel through the multiverse freely. Issei read the information about a crystal orb with what looked like a galaxy inside. Nah, I can now make a portal with my chains for that, Issei said, and then continued with the next relic. He was bored and had nothing to do until night fell, although since he thought he would be locked up for a long time, he would not be able to know if it was night or day, so by opening a portal with his own chains, he would see behind the top of a building in the city of Kuo, which was already night. Why didn't I think of doing this much earlier instead of acting stupid here, Issei said before passing through the portal, which closed once his 2 feet stepped on the roof of the building. After that, his clothes became the ones he used on his trip around the world. After that, through a magic circle, his motorcycle would appear on his right side. Time to judge, Issei said, turning into the phantom vigilante, making sure that his grandfather's power was not noticed by anyone. After that, he got on his motorcycle and jumped off the building, falling to another roof of another building, and then jumping again and landing on another roof. He continued like this until he reached the bottom of everything, landing in the streets of the city. Going at full speed through the streets would attract the attention of those hiding in the shadows. The renegade demons came out of their hiding places feeling the angelic incentives. They looked for him and tracked him, wanting to kill one of the race they hated the most, and so it was the vigilante arrived at an abandoned church where renegades, fallen and demons began to arrive. Issei only saw them in his hands. He invoked through his celestial fire golden chains with seals and magical symbols of a light blue color. Humans, you don't know how much I love creating weapons to fight whatever comes your way, Issei said, looking at his chains with fascination. After that, and before any of the renegades spoke, Issei created more chains. These same ones were mentally thrown by Issei to the renegades, tying them up and then burning them with the flames of heaven. Time after. I think this is it, said Issei, changing to his avenger form to feel the power of demons approaching him. Waiting a few seconds by the windows of the place would enter 2 teenage girls, a black-haired girl with violet eyes, who was followed by a white-haired girl and a black-haired girl. The other girl, who had red hair and light blue hair, was followed by a black-haired girl with violet eyes, a white-haired girl with golden eyes, and a blonde-haired princess girl with silver eyes. But what? Said the teenagers when they saw the corpses of the renegades lying on the floor. They were all charred, some still had a small light blue flame. They're late, Issei said normally, beginning to leave the place. Who are you? The red-haired girl asked Issei seriously. It's none of your business, Issei responded, becoming the avenger and then calling his motorcycle. Stay there, that's an order, said the first black-haired girl coldly and seriously. Impure demons like you can't give me orders, Issei responded, passing by the lesser demons. What did you call us? The red-haired girl asked with annoyance and venom in her voice. How dare you say that to Ria-sama Sona-sama, said the blonde-haired man and the white-haired woman who followed the black-haired woman. Issei just turned around and looked everyone in the eyes, causing them to fall to the ground unconscious. PSK, impure fool, said Issei annoyed, leaving the place. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.